Hi, this is Amanda and Cadenet, and welcome to a very special episode of The Conversation. I've been recording live from the Hotel Chelsea in New York City, and my guest today is Billie Piper. It's good to see you.
Oh, it's so nice to see you.
Oh my gosh. It's been a really long time.
Yeah, it's probably, 20, is it 20 years?
We are that old.
It would make sense.
But we started young.
I know.
No, we started really young. So we should be like 60 by now, but we're actually not.
I feel it.
I feel it too. I do.
I know.
But it has been a while.
I know.
One of my first times taking photos for British Vogue was of you.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
It was so cute. I love it.
Right?
I think I must have been about 20 then. I think it was in the first 2 seasons of Doctor Who. So like 21, 22.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So when I say that we should be 60 by now, it is because both of us started our careers really young. How old were you when you started working?
I signed a record deal when I was 14.
Same. I started hosting TV when I was 14. How is it possible that when I tell people in America, this is how young I was when I started working, people look at me like, isn't that illegal?
Well, it probably was illegal, although it was a lawless time, so anyone could do whatever they wanted.
Which I quite like.
There's lots of things about that time that I prefer.
Yeah.
Mostly the non-techness of that world.
No social media, thank God.
No social media, no endless online activity. But there's also stuff, I don't know, that there was a sort of freedom that I miss.
From then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Say a little more about that.
Well, I don't necessarily miss the sort of lawlessness of it, but I suppose that it feels like, I don't know, I'm just really mindful now when I'm doing all of this press that there is a different level of anxiety surrounding doing a huge body of press.
What is that anxiety?
Well, I think it's just that you have to just be way more cautious about everything you say because it's, it has the potential to be forensically pulled apart and criticised, and at worst, you could be taken down.
Yeah, I can't believe I haven't been cancelled, and not because I'm particularly controversial, but if
you're talking about tough stuff,
yeah, like maybe you don't phrase something the right way or whatever.
Yeah,
but it's interesting because you grew up in the age of, tabloid, chaos, as did I.
I know. Tabloid fodder, both of us, I think.
Yeah. And the only way that people could get information was from the tabloids.
Yeah.
There wasn't online. And so in a way, it was like more focused and it didn't travel internationally.
I know. I miss that.
Yeah.
I miss the thing, I said this really bad thing in Japan, but it's okay because it's never going to get home. Or
exactly.
I said this thing in England, it has potential to grow very fast and spread.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think about, what it was like growing up as a young person in the UK. And very few people have the same experience as you and I did because there weren't really many famous people back in when you and I were teenagers and in the tabloid press. It was really a handful of people. And if you were one of those people, man, were you one of those people? Yeah. And it seems like another lifetime ago.
I know.
It really does.
I know. Everyone's famous now.
Everyone is famous. And I was saying that pretty much everyone's an influencer.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah, everyone's like selling something.
Yeah.
And everything's branded or an ad or sponsored.
Yeah.
And it's a whole different world.
I know.
And weirdly, even though I grew up and I've been known as you have since I'm a teenager, I sort of have a very different relationship to fame. It sort of came from a whole different place. And I sort of don't really relate to how it is today in many ways.
No, but there is also, it's really hard because it's quite polarizing. There's also a security now that I didn't feel like I had before either. So it's a bit of it's both things. I feel, I remember when I was younger, I always felt like very afraid of anything coming out in a Sunday paper, the whole week felt like it was geared towards what's someone going to say now, and that was really, really frightening. And the level of paparazzi interest and just the sort of lack of protection you had around them was very different. And I don't miss that. I don't miss how much access they had to you in that period of time.
Yeah, it's actually the main reason that I left the UK.
Yeah, I bet, yeah.
And it's sort of sad when I look back, because I left a country where I had a successful career and family because I just could not handle the insanity of, the recklessness of the tabloids.
Do you think it's worse there than it is with the paparazzi?
Yes,
are worse?
Definitely.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. Famous English people move to the States so they can get some peace.
Yeah.
I mean, not comparing myself to Meghan Markle, but she moved to Los Angeles or outside of Los Angeles for a reason.
Yeah.
There's so many more famous people per square foot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot more. I mean, it's very different today because there are rules, like kids can't get photographed. You can't put the kids' faces.
Which I love.
So do I.
I'm really, really grateful for that.
Do you have that in the UK now?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
We've
fantastic.
had that for a while, actually. But you still have to remind them sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
I think my kid's face is very much featuring in that article. Please pixelate it.
Yeah. Yeah. Why did you choose to stay living in the UK? Because I'm sure even growing up, there must have been times where you were like, I don't know if I want to live around this.
Yeah, I definitely flirted with the idea of moving to LA a lot because, well, I wanted the sunshine more than anything else. I did actually move there for 4 months when I was with Chris. We moved there and we loved it. And I can't really remember why we moved back, but we did eventually. I had a great time. I don't really know why I never did it. Maybe fear. Maybe as soon as I started having children, I felt like I didn't want to move them around a lot, but maybe just fear of making that big geographical move. Yeah.
I mean, it is a big move. So your first, you mentioned Chris Evans.
Yeah.
You got married at what age to Chris?
18.
18, right. I was 18 when I married John
It's too
Taylor
weird.
too. I know. Weird. Oh my God, you and I.
That's too weird.
It's weird being married. When I look back at it and I think I've got a daughter who's 17 and I think if my daughter was getting married to someone, John was 29 and I was 18, what would
you do?
I would lose my mind.
I know, I would lose my mind.
I would lose my mind. Oh my God. She's a child.
I know, it's wild.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
How much older than you was Chris?
I think it was like 15 years.
Right.
I think.
But by the way, it didn't seem like a big age gap to me. It seemed like...
Well, it didn't to me either.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think if it had felt unusual, then I probably wouldn't have done it. But by that point, I'd lived a lot of life.
Same.
And so I didn't think of myself as 18. I felt about 39.
Yeah.
And
which is why we're 60 now.
Exactly. And I really felt I just had a lot of experience. I'd good and bad, and I felt more emotionally sophisticated than maybe I would have done if I'd had a life of school and uni. I don't know.
Yeah, I felt the same way.
I felt fine. It felt like, well, this feels like a good time.
Yeah. Well, actually, with kind of life experience, it probably was a good match in that sense,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I felt as well.
Yeah.
I felt like, oh, who's going to understand my weird life?
Yeah, definitely. There was a lot of that. There was a lot of, yeah, he felt like someone who totally understood everything about it and actually could teach me a lot about how to cope with it.
Same with me. I really think that John Taylor taught me and helped me navigate that whole period of my life because he had so much experience with it. I sort of needed somebody who knew more than me and could help guide me. Did you finish school?
No.
Oh my
Did
God,
you?
no, I didn't. Do you have any
Wait,
GCSE?
are you a Virgo?
I'm a Taurus.
Oh, okay.
But
Damn.
do you have any?
Our only difference.
I know. Do you have any GCSEs?
No.
No, I don't either. Oh my God. And
You couldn't get away with that now, I don't think.
no, you couldn't. It would be illegal. Again, you can't not get some, you have to finish school.
I have to finish school. I feel a bit mixed about that.
I do too. But, I also go and talk to young women and tell them about my story of not finishing school, because I think it's really important for people to know that you cannot have a traditional career trajectory and you can still succeed.
Oh, yeah, it's really important. It's so awful to think that those years of school and those GCSE results, that's what we call them in the UK, are the making of you, or are in some way defining. They're probably good for sixth form, but beyond that, I'm not entirely sure.
I agree with you. So let's talk about your incredible career longevity, because you did start young and you've done so much work. As you mentioned, when I first met you, you were on Doctor Who, but you've been a singer, you've acted in plays, in television, you direct, you produce. And I have to say that the project that really made me fall in love with you again was I Hate Suzie. It was like seeing, it was like seeing myself in many ways. And I think so many women felt like that. And I was so happy it was on TV in the US, thank God. But that project, which you co-wrote, right?
I co-created, Lucy Preble wrote, and we co-exec the whole thing.
Do you find that you have to, or not have to, but was it a big difference for you in your career when you worked out, I can executive produce my own projects and tell the stories I want to tell?
Yeah, it was groundbreaking.
Yeah.
It felt like I was alive. But it felt like, okay, I have a voice and I'm, I can do this. It's fine. And also I'm ready to be more transparent about who I am, what I feel, what I think, how I want to dramatize that. It was eye-opening. It's quite hard to go back.
Yeah, right.
Or be like an actor for hire, I guess.
And say someone else's words and someone else's...
Yeah.
Yeah, without that level of input.
Yeah.
So where did I Hate Suzie come from?
So I Hate Suzie was born out of Lucy and I. We're best friends. We'd spent years, we'd worked together on Secret Diary of a Cool Girl, and then it went so badly, or critically badly, that we didn't work together for a while after that. Not because, we were cross with one another, but because we just went our separate ways. We came together again for a play called The Effect, which I think is now showing again in New York.
Oh, wow.
And then we just spent a huge amount of time counseling each other through our 30s, which felt like to both of us significant years in our lives, where everything felt like, wow, what is this?
Yeah. What is going on?
What is this? Because your 20s are so sort of like inconsequential and you think you're having a hard time, but really comparative to your 30s, it's a breeze.
It's a walk in the park.
It's a walk in the park. So it was, we just spent a huge amount of time together, a lot of time on the phone. We were both going through different things, and often those things would be really awful, but they'd also really make us laugh. And we kind of agreed that wouldn't it be great to make a show that sort of coasted that line and reflected how hard it can be to be a woman in your 30s, or just a woman generally. And what world can we use to tell that story that feels slightly bigger than reality? And I think having her be an actress allowed us that sort of access.
I mean, it was really wonderful to see such a messy character and so relatable, because so often, obviously, women's roles are written with an agenda of them being represented a certain way.
Yeah.
And it was so refreshing to see how undone you were at times. and it was so realistic because that's how it is.
Yeah,
It's like, thank God someone's telling the truth.
Yeah, exactly. It's true. It's so, and I feel like we both were always moaning and lamenting about the fact that we never actually ever saw ourselves reflected in anything we were watching, how it always felt so convenient and tidy and put together. And it's just so funny and moving and truthful to watch someone continue to make bad decisions. But it's life, that's what it's like.
It is life.
And be so reactive to the world, both the society, but also men.
Yeah.
So that was also something we really wanted to focus on.
I mean, well done for actually doing it, because it's the kind of thing that you sort of say with your girlfriend, oh my God.
Wouldn't it be great?
Yeah, wouldn't it be great?
If we could just be ourselves.
Yeah, and you actually did it. Like you actually pulled it off and got it made and got it on TV and got something shown that is a very UK, very English sensibility in the US. And I was so happy for that.
Oh, thanks.
Really, because...
I'm really glad it got some airtime out here.
I am too. I am too. So when you look at the roles that you pick...
Yeah.
What is it about the women that interest you? I mean, specifically, let's talk about Scoop.
Yeah.
Because that is a fascinating story.
Yeah.
And one that centers, women, even though the subject of the interview is obviously Prince Andrew, acting Prince Andrew.
Yeah.
But the women are the leads.
Yeah.
What was it about that story that interested you?
I followed that story really closely. I read everything about Epstein and Ghislaine, and
oh my God, obsessed.
Yeah, and it made me very angry and very sad, and then when the opportunity came along, my agent said to me, "Oh, this is a script. It's about the Prince Andrew interview." It piqued my interest because I studied it so much. Not necessarily the interview, but their behavior. And so I thought, yeah, I do want to do that. I really want to be part of something like that. But how is this going to work dramatically? Making a story about something we've all seen. We all know what's going to happen. We all know how it ends. Like, where are the stakes in something like that if we're gearing towards this huge moment that has been memed and gone, gone viral. Everybody knows. And then I read the script and I fell in love with Sam McAllister, who was the booker producer on the show of Newsnight. And
she's the one that got the interview.
She's the hustler,
I mean,
right?
my
We love
God.
Emily Maitlis. We love her. What she did was incredible and only she could do that. But someone has to make that happen. And Sam, I think, is very much, integral, but also I feel like she's the reason he said yes in many ways.
Why? Why do you think?
Because she's so warm and real, and she's kind of irresistible. And I don't mean that in a sense of,
seductive.
I'm not saying
no,
she's
no, no,
seductive.
You
I'm
mean
saying
that she's
a professional.
Yeah.
But she has a working class background, and she's quite twinkly, and she's very curious, and she's really seemingly, I don't really know the truth of this, but when you meet her, she feels so non-judgmental.
Yeah.
And I think that's her training as a criminal barrister.
Interesting.
So she was probably the only person that was going to call him Randy Andy to his face. And I think in many ways, he kind of liked that someone
and respected that.
Yeah, and someone was being a bit real with him.
Yeah.
And, so I think she is and she was very close with Amanda, who was his woman. Have you met her?
No, and I actually want to interview her.
You have to interview her.
When I was reading up on her, I was like,
amazing.
Oh my God, I want to interview her.
Oh my God, you've got to.
I mean, as someone who has interviewed people for many years, I know how hard it is to get guests who are tricky. And obviously, a member of the royal family is extremely difficult, and one who has a lot at stake.
Yeah.
And so I was so impressed with her when she got that interview and just blown away. Like, who is this woman?
I know. She's everything. If she is not well, she has this sort of icon energy. But if she's not hosting things at the end of this, I'd be really surprised.
Interesting. You heard it here first.
I really think I told her
Billie
she should get an
Piper.
agent and move swiftly, because she has all the journalistic skills. She is insanely bright. She's so warm, but she's also got that sort of famey quality about her that I just think would clean up, particularly here. But
Sadly,
I signing myself.
sadly, those qualities do not guarantee you a job anymore.
Isn't that awful?
It is awful, but it's true.
I know.
Because how many TikTok followers does she have? Because that is all that matters.
Well,
it isn't, but it does.
Well, she probably has a few. I don't know. She's her own hype girl.
Amazing.
As she should be.
I mean, amazing. Okay, so let's talk about parenting because you have 3 children.
I do, yeah.
I have 3 children as well. And what's the age span? There's where are you at now?
15, 12, and 5. So it's quite different.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I have a 15-year gap between my first and my second batch.
Yeah.
And when I say batch, it's because I have twins.
Yeah.
It's really interesting for me parenting almost in kind of 2 different eras,
Yeah, I bet.
you know?
Okay, so now it's really helicopter parenting style, right?
Yeah.
And how was it before?
It was not. It was sleep. It was
Sleep when you want.
It was I'm going out for dinner and you've just got to come with me and go to sleep on the banquette. And here's what I'm eating for dinner and that's it. That's what you've got.
I know. I do miss that.
So do I. And I have to say that having raised kids in these 2 different, parenting perspectives, I think the kind of more social, emotional, gentle parenting definitely has its downsides.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I can see that now with the 2 different sets of
You've
kids.
given them too much airtime.
Yeah. and now they talk to me like I work for them. Not my son, but my daughter specifically.
Yeah.
It's very much like we're equal. It's like, no, we're not equal, actually.
Yeah.
I'm your parent and it's very different. I definitely feel like the gentle, permissive parenting, very focused on how are you feeling about everything?
Oh my God, that's me.
I mean, that has been me too.
That's so me. My kids are like, we don't want to talk about our feelings.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm so obsessed with I never got to talk about my feelings as a kid. So I really want you to have this space.
Same.
And actually they seem like they don't want it.
I mean, I will say that from the generation that didn't get parented with our feelings being considered, I sort of feel like I've gone the other direction where I've given them space to tell me how they feel about everything. But the truth about life is, first of all, feelings aren't facts.
Yeah.
And second of all, you can feel like shit and you still have to show up and do it.
I know. Feelings aren't facts blew my mind when somebody first said that to me. My therapist said that to me and I was like, what do you mean?
I know.
I've relied entirely on my feelings.
Same.
And it's so true because quite often they have led me to be impulsive and make bad decisions.
Same.
Or spend time sort of ruminating on, well, why did she say that thing to me? And it's like, oh God, no one was even thinking that.
I know.
So that is a massive breakthrough. But I think you're right to your point before, which is, it is a lot. It's a lot to constantly be. And also, it's a lot for me to cope with constantly knowing how they feel.
Yes, exactly. Because then you have to hold that
ask,
space.
I can ask, but then I have to manage my emotions around what they're saying to me.
Yeah.
And that is the part that you don't prepare yourself for. You go, oh, I'll be the, engaged, thoughtful parent. And then they tell you something that's truthful for them in the moment.
Yeah.
And you go, you don't feel like that.
I know. And then you invalidate their feelings, which actually
is the worst part.
I
know.
It's really
There's two steps in that. How are you feeling? And the second one is the body of work for me. Or just don't ask.
Same. Well, I now feel like I'm not asking.
Yeah.
I just feel like
they'll come to me when they want to talk.
Right.
I know.
They know that I'm interested, but that holding space for everybody's feelings is exhausting.
It's exhausting, and we're not therapists. That's the other thing.
I
It's like with their
know.
mothers, we're not therapists, so it's not necessarily my skill set. Even though I've now done a load of therapy, it doesn't make me like a professional in that world.
Well, I feel the same way. It's like I'm highly therapized. My family is highly therapized. And I feel like they've kind of, I feel like they've sort of gone the other way now, my kids, where they are critical of me referring to mental health specialists consistently.
Yeah.
And so they've sort of gone, no, we don't want to do therapy because actually we're not relying on therapists to tell us how we should be. We think we can do it without that. And it sort of made them go the other way now.
You got to be careful, yeah.
This is what I'm saying.
Because if the shit hits the fan and they do really need therapy, you know, it's like, have I burnt my bridges with that?
Exactly. And so it's actually sort of interesting balance.
What's your eldest? So your eldest, how old is she now?
32.
Oh.
I know.
And what's she like having not been parented like that?
She's a lot more resilient.
Less anxious?
Less anxious.
Wow, that's interesting. Although that can be a genetic makeup, but anyway.
More resilient and has more internal tools to navigate the reality of difficulties of life.
Yeah.
Whereas I would say the other two don't have that life experience because they're younger, but also they've grown up in a lot more of a kind of padded environment, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, and I can really see the difference.
Yeah.
And the younger ones are more, they're not out in the world as much. They're at home a lot more.
That feels like a generational thing, right?
It is.
It's kind of sad. It really upsets me that.
And I mean, look.
I'm the person going around, get out into the world.
So am I.
The sun's out.
Yes.
Climb a tree.
Yeah, no, it's over. Billie, that is over. Nobody cares about the sun.
I know, it's such an eye roll. That's all I get. It's like, who says that? Who says climb a tree?
Exactly.
We're 15.
Exactly. Although, weirdly, my son does love nature and hiking.
Yeah, actually, my kids do. So, and actually, they still love going to the countryside. So maybe it's kind of worked.
And what I will say is that I can now see in my older one all the stuff that she poo-pooed when she was younger. She actually has brought a lot of that forward. That is actually integrated into her.
Okay.
So you kind of like see, oh, maybe, you know, when she was 15, she was like, I hate art. Don't drag me to another museum.
I know.
And I was devastated. I was like, what do you mean you don't want to go to a museum or a gallery? And now she goes and invites me. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that.
I know. That's exactly what I'm like. Let's see a play. They're like, why?
Yeah, I know.
And they're right. You know, it's like, you know, yes, there are some amazing plays, but there's also a lot of bad ones.
Because you started so young, life, and because I started so young, I think parenting has been one of the hardest things for me to work out, like what's appropriate and what isn't, what's age appropriate. Because I wasn't age appropriate.
I know.
You know, and it's like, well, I don't really have a role model for what this is supposed to look like. And it's been one of the hardest things for me to navigate. And then having children with two different baby daddies, in my case, and also in your case, I wonder how that is for you navigating co-parenting.
How can you gauge what is and isn't right or appropriate for a child of that age? I struggle with that. It's one of my biggest issues, really, as a parent, because I didn't really grow up with my family because I was working from 14. So conflict feels frightening to me. And like I need to resolve it when actually it's a really big part of siblings and learning how to fight and resolve in the world beyond your childhood. You know, stuff like that. It's less frightening to my siblings when they're raising their kids than it is to me. And I think it's because I have no gauge on what's normal, really, often in a sort of nuclear family way.
I completely understand that. And, you know, I think conflict is crucial for defining who we are as well.
Yeah.
You almost need to kind of hear something that is offensive to you, or you're like, oh my God, I don't agree with that, to kind of also form your sense of self.
Yeah.
And so it is really important. And I know what you mean about that kind of anxiety of not having something tidied
to pull
up
from as well.
Yeah, I also don't know, you know. I also don't know because I was out in the world. I went to boarding school at 11 and I started working at 14.
Yeah. It's the same. I was in, very adult situations as a young person. So sometimes, I have to really pull apart what is me being very anxious about letting them go, but also me just going, well, this seems fine.
Right.
Based on my past, this should be okay for you. And it's just like, well, maybe it's not. I don't know. That's the issue.
I don't know either. And that is why I refer to people who I trust and why at times it has been mental health professionals.
Totally.
Because I want to know, like, I don't know what's normal.
Yeah.
What is normal? My normal was
working.
It was unusual,
very unusual.
And so I don't have that frame of reference and I didn't grow up with a family intact.
Yeah.
And so, but it is definitely, and I was saying this to you in the bathroom when you were doing your makeup, that parenting the eldest child for me with a father who I was not living with.
Yeah.
So he was less involved. Definitely had pros to it.
Yeah.
And it is much harder.
It's good that you talk about that because I think that is encouraging for single mums and women choosing to have children slightly later in their lives on their own.
Yes.
I've got a few friends there are pros to it.
There really are because raising these two with a father who's extremely involved definitely has its other set of challenges.
So what are the differences in your parenting styles?
He is a lot more structured as a human being.
That's surprising to me because he's a musician.
Yeah, he's very structured and I'm not.
That's really interesting.
And it really comes into play with parenting.
Yeah.
Because he likes order and likes everyone to know if you do this, then this will happen. We're eating at 6 o'clock every day.
Yeah.
Like, here's the schedule. Here's the routine. And I am like, I don't know. Let's see how I feel.
Yeah. I know.
I don't know what I want for dinner. I have to see how I feel. I don't know. I don't know what will happen if they do that thing. I don't know. I have to think about it.
I know. It's hard, isn't it?
It's really hard.
And what about the kids then? How do they fare in that?
Well, that's still up for debate.
We'll see.
We'll see. We will reconnect in 10 years' time and I'll tell you because I don't really know.
But it is interesting because it's somewhat reassuring really because, there are different parenting styles within families that are together.
Yes, there are.
But the messaging is you have to be aligned. And it's like, but we're totally different people. So how?
I think that's bullshit. I think the kind of the child psych 101 is that parents must be aligned. Otherwise, kids will split, right? Yeah. And they will triangulate and play one parent off the other to try and get whatever it is that they want. And psych 101 is that the kids need boundaries and they need these firm boundaries and to know that they can't push past them. And what I have said to many family therapists is, what if you've got a parent who, I'm going to use the lightest example possible. One is vegan and one eats burgers.
Yeah.
Then what? Someone is compromising their values.
Yeah.
And I don't want it to be me.
Yeah, it's hard.
So.
But you know what is good? And I think within families as well, there's also something to get from your parents having different views on things because that's what the world is like.
Yes.
So in many ways, as long as it's not terribly destructive, in many ways, you are somehow teaching your children how to pull from their parents, but also become independent and make up their own minds. And often they're really influenced by their peers as well.
At a certain age, they're more influenced by their peers.
Totally.
Which is why who they're around is so important.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite lucky with that at the moment, but that could change, of course.
But your 15-year-old is a girl or a boy?
A boy. And his friends are really sweet.
Interesting.
Yeah.
See, I think the boys are trickier earlier.
That's what they say, yeah.
And then that's been my experience.
I'm from, there's 4 of us, 3 girls and a boy, and that was my experience as a kid within that family. The girls were, hang on, you say the boys are tricky earlier?
Earlier.
Yeah.
And girls, when they hit puberty.
Yeah, it goes.
And it makes sense because the hormones kick in.
Yeah.
And that's when you start. I mean, I saw it clear as day with my girls.
I feel like I'm heading in that direction. Yeah.
With your girls?
Well, I feel like with my daughter, and I don't know how much I'm projecting my own relationship with my mother on this, but I'm so forensic with my mum. Like, I feel like I know why she does everything she does. And we're not really enmeshed, but I think girls just see through you, your daughters. I don't know if you feel like that's true. Please tell me it's not.
It's interesting you're saying you're not really enmeshed. Are you sure about that?
I don't think so. But maybe that's because I've done a load of work on it.
Yeah.
I think in the past, I was very consumed with my mother's feelings and felt I had to do things that I probably didn't have to do. None of them terrible, but, just preoccupied with how she is. And I've done like 10 years of therapy. So maybe that's why I don't feel like that anymore.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's so interesting. Most of my therapeutic work was around my relationship with my dad as the primary kind of issue. And literally, because of course I was like, why do I make all these choices with men and blah, 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 right? And so first male role model, relationship with dad. And, my dad was away a lot because he was a race car driver and wasn't emotionally present. And then I picked men like that, of course, like let's recreate childhood and trying to have a better outcome. That did not work. And so I spent a lot of time looking at the relationship with my dad. And then literally in the last year, it was like, oh my God, my dad died 18 months ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. And I feel very resolved with my relationship with him. I did so much work on it. And in the last year or so, I'm like, oh, actually, the first relationship is with the mother. Yeah. Let's look at that one.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So that's now...
That's the new work.
That's the new work.
Are you engaging her on it, with it?
Well, my mom has dementia.
Oh, no.
And so it's like she's there,
tricky.
But not there.
Yeah.
But I did get to ask her a lot of questions before it kind of went to the place of like, I don't know if what she's saying is real or not,
Yeah.
But I think as a mother of daughters as well, obviously... Well, as a mother, I don't want to pass on negative imprints.
Yeah.
And so, how we choose to live is we're like the Wi-Fi for our kids. They log on, they just do, it's like they log on, and what we experience internally, whether it's spoken or not, they pick it up.
I know, but it's so hard, that, isn't it?
It is.
It's such a huge responsibility, and feels like, but that's why you have to be somewhat transparent about your feelings with your kids, in a sort of child-focused way, instead of going, no, I'm fine, because it's like they can't know you that way, and they can't learn from you if you're constantly denying how you're actually feeling. And in some ways, I feel like they somehow feel like that's their fault,
which is the worst thing.
Yeah,
and I do think that by letting them know how we feel and when we are struggling, it gives them permission to also not judge themselves when they have that experience, which they're going to, My therapist always says to me that not the worst, he wouldn't use this language, but kids feeling responsible for us is like, no,
it's the worst.
The worst.
I know.
And that we're all going to fail.
Yeah.
He says to me, how do you want to lose?
I know.
You're going to lose. You're going to, everyone damages their kids.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. Accept that. Stop beating yourself up about that. Do your best and accept that, you're going to mess them up in some ways.
Yeah. It's very hard to accept that.
I know.
But it's true, of course.
I know.
Of course. And probably all the things that they'll raise with you later in their lives if they start going to therapy will be the things that you didn't ever consider.
Yeah, maybe
whilst
right.
you were dealing with how are you feeling?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Tell me how to feel.
I know.
It will be something like, do you remember you just used to do this thing that you were like, God, I was so unaware of that.
That's the great teacher, isn't it? They are our teachers.
They are your biggest teacher. I feel like that. I feel totally transformed by having kids, and I love it. I love it so much. But they're like, it's like they're just your insight to yourself.
If you really want to learn who you are,
have a kid.
Have a kid. Oh my God. And 3 of them, that's the mirrors. They're just mirrors.
I know. But they're also just like, they're just the best thing ever. I just, yeah. I mean, I love them. I feel that they're just the most important things to me.
Same.
I love my work, but it's definitely secondary.
Yeah, and it's important that our kids know that as well, So what stories do you feel like you have in you that you want to tell at this point?
I don't really know at the moment. I feel like I want to write something for kids. So whether it's like quite a complex emotional idea, but sort of played through, I don't know, something quite mythical and maybe even animation.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
And I guess kind of circling around these ideas that we're talking about, the themes that we're talking about, and just how to be a family in this world, but finding a sort of, I don't want to say a Disney inn, but an inn that is colourful and easy for them to access.
Yeah.
Something like that. But that's a really big body of work.
Yeah, I think it could be interesting, though.
It could be. I mean, what else do I want to do? I don't know. I love writing. I'm just doing a lot of that at the moment. In terms of who to play, I don't know.
You'll see what comes up.
I'll see what comes up. As long as it's not disingenuous, then I'm sort of always in. If it feels like something that's fully fleshed and out and insightful, then that's usually the thing that makes me sign on to a job.
I hope you make things that involve you writing and you executive producing.
Yeah, I think I just want to do that.
Yeah,
forevermore.
I think so too. I think you need, do you have a production company?
I don't, but I was thinking about that the other day. I know, but I also feel immediately overwhelmed by the management of people.
Oh no, do not do that. Don't do that.
And
I can tell you right now.
Overheads.
Don't do it.
Just no. the business side of it and the emotional side of it slightly blows my mind.
Yeah.
So I just need to find a way through that.
Or not. You just get a business partner and they do the business and you do the creative.
All that, yeah.
I mean, I did have a company, my company Girl Gaze, where I raised money and I had people working there and stuff. And I would definitely do it differently. You're a creative person. You need to be able to have space to do what you do best. Get someone else who does what they do best, which is manage people and run the business.
Yeah.
That would be my unsolicited advice to save your sanity.
I know, but I'm so codependent. I probably just,
Are you all right? How are you feeling about the spreadsheet today?
I know. This is why I can't be in a group. Actually, it's really funny. I was reading my school report the other day with my son as he was reading his, and we had really similar comments, which were likes to work alone.
Ah, interesting.
He's the same.
Good to know. Good to know that about yourself.
So I just have to do the whole thing myself, I guess.
I also like to work alone, which is why I set up all this gear by myself.
Well, look what you did. Great job.
Oh my God. That's all I've got for you, Billie. Thank you for doing this. Thank you. It is so lovely to see you. I mean, what a treat. Thank you so much for listening to that fantastic episode. Please like, subscribe, and all that business. It does really help the podcast. And most importantly, come join me on Substack. Substack is where I'm showing the video of the entire episode that you just listened to. So find me on Substack if you want to dig in a bit deeper to the subjects that we talked about in this episode. See you there.